I think that, and it maybe sounds silly, but it's like it allows you to be creative, right?
I don't think
Creative.
that's silly at all. I think that's fantastic.
Like it's
Yeah.
not, creative like I'm drawing some, like I don't know that I'm like talking about it to other people, like listen to this creative thing I came up with at work. But as someone that's seen the whole process, when you suddenly see yourself come up with a creative solution that makes things better, I mean, you said it's like we're impact. Like I like to see an impact. The
Yeah.
closing the deal is nice and like
Yeah.
obviously, revenue, blah blah blah. But I want to see that people's lives are easier and like the function for legal for them becomes like a business partner. And I think to become that business partner, you have to be able to be at that strategic level, be helping them. Like, because the legal ops, we're calling it legal ops because it stems from legal, right?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Beacon Voices. I'm really excited today to talk to somebody that I've gotten a chance to know maybe in the last month and a half, although we've been connected on LinkedIn for some time and have shared a lot of really cool, interesting insights about the similarities in our career, how we think about the legal profession, how we think about legal technology and legal operations. So we're going to dive into all of that with Gal Bruck, who is a fractional counsel and legal ops expert based out of Israel. Gal, please take a little bit of time, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into the conversation after that.
Definitely. Thanks for the warm introduction. Um, yeah, so I mean, similar to you, right? I think I started in a very traditional going to law school, and I'm going to be a lawyer, whatever I thought that meant. And I think that kind of evolved over time to what I felt being a lawyer meant and what those skills translated to. And I think super exciting what's happening in legal tech today, so that you can really build something a lot more sustainable with that knowledge that we've gained, both in law school and both, I think, just like in life,
Yeah.
beyond.
Do we gain knowledge in law school? Do you really think that we do that?
So that I know that's a question. Other than you saying like memorizing that, all these factors need to be true to equal X. I think really for me in law school, maybe the class that taught me the most, and I still use today, was my like legal writing class.
Yeah.
And I had a professor, Professor Figley, who what he taught me, and I use this all the time, is he said the most important thing is audience and purpose. Like, I don't need to teach you, you don't need to know, like, the law is the law, and the law, like, part of our job is to interpret it. But
Yeah.
really, you always need to know, like, who's your audience and what's your purpose here. And I think I've taken kind of that kind of idea and used it in the things that I do because there isn't a one set answer, right? Like, and that's definitely what you learn when you go in house or something. That there isn't, okay, who's
Yeah.
my audience? It's a sales.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
purpose is getting this deal closed. Like, I don't need the most legally perfect answer. I need to, figure out what we actually need to get done here.
Yeah. First of all, shout out to Professor Figley, who you remember, and I think it's so cool. Having taught myself, like when any of my former students either tag me in a post or I hear my name somewhere else, it's really a nice feeling. So, big shout out for him because the one sentence that really stuck with you from law school came from him. I also think it's a really important one, irrespective of whether you are a lawyer or not.
100.
I am like you, like I don't really practice law anymore, but especially in the world that I live in, I mean, if I'm out there speaking on a panel or I'm writing an email to a customer or a prospect or whoever it may be, the first thing that I sit down to try and think, okay, who am I writing to and what will resonate with them? Right.
Exactly.
And hopefully the two things match in a very authentic kind of way, because if they don't, it's not going to work.
Of
But
course.
hopefully those match in a really authentic way and you can keep those in mind. It's a really powerful thing to be able to do, to communicate in that fashion. So great takeaway from Professor Figley. Where'd you go to law school? I should really know this because I looked
No,
at your
no, it's
LinkedIn, but
fine.
I
I
looked
went
around.
to American University,
That's right.
out in
That's right.
DC.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he was
Um,
a very great guy.
Yeah. You went to law school to be a lawyer, like many of us, um, and yet you are here several years later, doing very different kinds of things. Tell us a little bit about kind of where the changes started to take place in your mind. What about, you know, going away from the hard practice of law was really enticing and interesting, and we'll unfold a little bit of the conversation that way.
So, I thought you have to go to a law firm. I think that's kind of just the path you really are trained and thought that you kind of need to go, or otherwise you're gonna be, homeless. But, you're like, "Okay, I gotta go to a law firm," and you go, and you're mostly trying to fit into the system, I think, at first, right? You're like, "This is how things are done." I mean, I think they're how that this is done because this is what is being shown above me. And I think when you start getting into it and understanding it more, you're like, wait, a lot of this is like not efficient, and it's not like driven on efficiency, like the model. So even if I'm doing like repetitive things or things that I'm like, maybe today people think like, how are you doing this? Okay, we have AI and we have things today that can really kind of maybe summarize things. But back in the old days, a due
Wasn't that
diligence
long ago, by the way,
wasn't that long.
wasn't that long ago.
The due diligence on some like investment round, like I'm literally opening up every document to check if there's some provision on whatever it is that I'm supposed to be looking for, which I'm not saying you don't need to do that, but obviously that's not the like strategic work, and it's repetitive. So you would think that we would come up with some sort of system of how to manage these things better. And I think always when I worked, I kind of built my own side knowledge repository of like, okay, I know I use this. What are those provisions I like to switch in NDAs? Let me keep that for myself so I won't be looking for it every time.
Yeah,
But like, okay, that should always be kind of true. And I think experiencing that and being on the outside, I said, okay, I wonder what it's like when I'm inside the company, and kind of you have to live with the decisions you make because you're there. Like you're not kind of that external and outside of the business. You're really in it. So
yeah,
there's different responsibilities that you don't normally have when you're external. You have more skin in the game. And then I think that the name of the game is like optimization, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
no one's like, "Oh, you did so many hours. Good job." Like they're like, "Were all the deals that I needed to get closed,
Yes.
or were we able to send out that like offer letter to this VP we're trying to get, and we want to send it by, whatever tonight, and I just told you an hour ago." But like, so I think for you to survive as a lawyer once you go in house, you have to start thinking about more the macro, and how am I making this not something where I'm just responsive, where I'm just putting out fires, where I'm just chasing my tail. Like, how do I build something that's more sustainable and scalable? And I think like getting to kind of like clean up the house and organize everything was something that I realized like, okay, I really enjoy this. And I think that has a bigger, longer term impact than the one off ad hoc, contract I helped close. Like, how can I make sure that we can close all those deals faster, not just that
Yeah.
specific one?
James Clear, who is somebody that I read often, he wrote this book called Atomic Habits.
Mm.
This guy was an Olympic lifter, and he's just so interested in the psychology of how human beings make choices, how they build habits, good or bad, how you change habits, good or bad. Like, if there was a book on change management, which is such a big part of legal operations that I would make sure everybody should read, it would be Atomic Habits. But he says something in that book, and I actually just interestingly read a post about this the other day, which is very relevant to what you just said. You were talking about success coming through systems, right? Um, Most people, certainly lawyers, certainly those of us who are type A, and like, let's be honest, those of us who decided to go to law school, we tend to be on the type A side. We are very goal oriented.
Yeah.
We like to hit goals. And he said something really powerful that I'd never understood before, maybe because I hadn't heard it. But since I read it for the first time, I was like, wow, this is so true. He's like, If you want to win once, set a goal. If you want to win once, set a goal. If you want to be successful consistently, build a system. And that to me is such a powerful encapsulation of what legal operations really is. Um, I mean, just random hypothetical example. I'm a SaaS company. Let's set a goal this quarter of closing 50 deals. Okay, yeah, you will hit that goal. You will hit that goal because you're good. Over time, you won't hit that goal because you'll need to increase that goal and you won't have built the systems to consistently help you hit those targets. And that to me is such a difference between being a go-getter and type A and excellence versus systems, process, technology, consistency. Those are two very different skill sets and mindsets. Okay. So
100%.
long way of saying also, you said something else, right? You're doing deals, you're doing diligence, and this light bulb goes on for you. You're like, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this. Now, that is a theme that we hear often with people on the operational side or whatever it may, but very few lawyers who still go through all of those things. Even today, even with all of our technology, they still do, I don't know, doc review and diligence and a lot of manual repetitive stuff. It's our profession is rampant with that. They go through this thing, but the light bulb doesn't go on, or it goes on and they ignore it. I don't know which one it is. I don't know which one's worse.
Yeah,
But
you're
it
right.
doesn't happen, and they don't make that operational shift. Why do you think that is? What is it about us that's like that?
I think one, it's like again, pre in-house, you're rewarded for different things. You're rewarded for this heroism of like, I stayed up till super late doing this, and that's great. So meaning like if you're willing to kind of give up a lot of your life just to get to, as you said, hit that goal, no one's asking any questions. They don't really care about and you've already gotten to that point where you feel like that struggle, that working that hard is you being successful because you're like, look how hard I'm working. And oftentimes, especially in-house, like I see a really high burnout rate where people are able to do it. Okay, you're doing it maybe a year, maybe a year and a half, and you're tired because hopefully your goal right in your company is that they're scaling, that they are going up, which means there's going to be more business. And oftentimes you'll see more inflated legal teams or things like that because they're not trying to solve the actual problem, which is they don't have a system, and they're solving it by just throwing more kind of manpower at it. And
Effort.
like that's kind of what they've been taught is like that's how we solve this is how we operate, we're all this like commando unit who's rushing in. And I kind of look at it like I don't want to be, I'm not an emergency room doctor, right?
Yeah.
Like on purpose for other reasons, but like, and I don't really like, that's my brother's area. I'm like I don't want to feel like someone's about to die, and in general that's not really what our job is. But a lot of people are living like that high level of anxiety where I'm
Yeah.
saying you're the family doctor, man. You should already have, there's other things in place, like everything. You shouldn't have that much anxiety because you're just a person that helps them navigate this world being the legal world. But like you're familiar with it, like use that knowledge to empower other people. I think
Yeah.
oftentimes lawyers, we're so scared of kind of sharing that knowledge or sharing the control over that. Where I'm saying, I would want you guys to have as much control that we can still keep within, some risk mitigated things. But I think a lot of times people like to keep that to themselves, like, and they don't realize, like, listen, even if it's not your common clause, if you've already seen that you guys repeatedly accept this exception, that's also built into your system. And so you're not having to rethink these things every time. You're not having to escalate it to everyone like this is a crisis, we've never heard about this.
Yeah.
And like you want to be doing the more strategic work. And I think we're so used to, as lawyers, doing a lot of like bogged down administrative work that maybe we're like afraid to let it go. Like, what else will I have? And it's like you have a lot of other things,
Yeah.
you can bring a lot of other value
Yeah.
that's not that administrative work. And
Yeah.
like trust yourself and allow yourself to be in that place where you have that space to do that work. Because when you're
Yeah.
just putting out fires, there's no way to build that system right now.
Yeah. You can't build the fire break. You can't do fire prevention if you are constantly putting out fires. I think, part of this you also really hit on is the difference in incentives and dynamics in the law firm world versus the in-house world. In the law firm world, your very value, and to some extent, I think this is a big driver, your identity is inextricably tied to the amount of work that you do, because that's literally the economic model for the law firm. The more work that Joe Smith lawyer does, the better compensated and revered Joe Smith lawyer is, and the better off the firm is going to be from a financial standpoint, right? Because if you have 1,000 Joe Smith lawyers who are all doing Joe Smith things with respect to putting in their time and putting in their effort, and which is not to say that there isn't expertise and results that are involved there. Yes, then everybody wins in that model. Now you
100%.
take that over to a business, and that's literally the worst thing that anyone can do. The more work that you put in without actual tangible outcomes for the business, not for the task at hand, not for the brief that needs to be written, but the actual tangible result for the business. If you can't connect the dots there and you can't impact that, what are you actually doing? Right? What are you actually doing? And now here's the big kicker. I know that law firms have been around for, I don't know, 200 years, 150, whatever that, like, a really long time, a lot longer than you and I have been alive. In-house departments have only been around for about 50 years. GE created the first one. Most in-house lawyer, actually, every in-house lawyer, almost, let's say 99%, came from law firms. So they came from this mentality and they bring it to the in-house world, which is why the in-house world is not immune from this disease either. And I will call it a disease. And so that's kind of a perfect segue. In comes the knight in shining armor of legal operations and legal technology. Tell us a little bit about, like, what drew you there outside of kind of this, there's got to be a better way to do this. Like, what else about it was there that really drew you?
I think that, and it maybe sounds silly, but it's like it allows you to be creative, right? Um,
I don't think
creative.
that's silly at all. I think that's fantastic.
Like, it's
Yeah.
not, creative, like I'm drawing somewhere, like, I don't know that I'm like talking about it to other people, like, listen to this creative thing I came up with at work. But as someone that's seen the whole process, when you suddenly see yourself come up with a creative solution that makes things better, I mean, you said it's like we're impact. Like, I like to see an impact. The
Yeah.
closing the deal is nice, and like
Yeah.
obviously, revenue, blah blah blah. But I want to see that people's lives are easier, and like the function for legal for them becomes like a business partner. And I think to become that business partner, you have to be able to be at that strategic level, be helping them. Like, because the legal ops, we're calling it legal ops because it stems from legal, right?
Yeah.
But it's really the operations that's funneled throughout the rest of the business, because legal is usually the only person that's really seen everyone's stuff, right? I'm like the only one that's read the, event sponsorship agreement we're doing in Las
Yeah.
Vegas. And, like no one else knows, but I'm saying, okay, how can I streamline for marketing that they have these events things? Do I feel like legal needs to look at everyone,
Yeah.
or do I feel like it's low risk considering all these other factors? So I think it's, legal on the out as an outside counsel is easy when you're just saying, I have to give the legal correct
Yep.
answer.
Yep.
And in-house, the legal correct answer is always easy. That's the base level. The question is, how can you get us to get what we want to do and do that? Like, what are your solutions?
Yeah.
And I think when you have a space to really, I know where the business is going. I've talked to product, I know where their ideas are. I know, and so I'm part of the streamline. Like, you never want to be, too late, right? That people are showing up to already when they're sick, right? They're like, help me. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Like, now it's harder. Like, we're already in a problem. And I want to be more like preventative healthcare type of thing, right? Like, I'm saying, I'm with you. We're trying to keep the whole system healthy. And I think that's really exciting when you're seeing, you're used to the KPIs of every other team and that they've hit them, and your kind of KPIs are obviously dependent on what someone's doing. But I think you really can measure not your KPIs in the normal sense, but it's really like business satisfaction and like being, you know, an enabler, not a roadblock. Like, how are you making those shifts and changes that people can do a lot of things, more self-service? And I mean, I think that's what the, spot drafts of the world are doing. And they're saying, listen, you can be a better way. You can make a system here. Of course, everyone wants to feel like their legal team's unique, and they're like, I don't know how it's going to be built in a system. And it's like, you're not that unique, and it can be built in the system. I think the question is, who knows how to build that system, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's where the gap between knowing that you might need a system, and that's a necessity for people, and like, how am I making that happen? Like, who knows the answers to the questions that, the solution
Yeah.
engineer is even asking me to start building my first workflow. And I
Yeah.
think that that's why the work becomes about legal ops, comes a lot before your first like tech purchase.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You should
Yeah.
be asking yourself, how do we even do things? Like, can I even tell you how one of these things work? Like, someone needs an idea. What happens? Someone talks to you in the hallway, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of people don't have a real system. Like,
Yeah.
not even a guideline that people know of how to operate with that person.
Yeah.
So I think
This
it
is
really starts at the basic level, right?
this is reminding me of that scene in Office Space. I don't know if you've seen that movie
Of
where the
course.
consultants have come in and they're talking to I forget the name of the character about what he does with the reports, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
so you physically take the reports to the engineer? She's like, well, no, my assistant does that. Point being, like, dig into every step of the process. But here's the kicker. If you're in law school, here are some words that you may not hear at all. Data, probably not going to hear that. Process, probably not going to hear that. Technology, probably not going to hear that. So you're really at a loss if you come in, and this is to me like, is a cool next part of the conversation. You come in, and if you want to do anything operational and you're thinking about going in house, you're at a little bit of a loss. So hopefully where you're going in house has, your, let's say your manager is operationally minded, or you've got a legal ops team member or somebody like that who can kind of help you navigate it. But without it, you're really going to stick to the habits that have made you successful. And that's going to be effort and manual labor because you don't really know how to work around those things. And I think that's a huge part of what continues to hold the profession back is there just isn't enough of that yet. We're starting to see a change. You're seeing legal operations classes and coursework and even certificates now popping up in law schools. And there's a really nice shift that's happening on the in-house side. I work with and speak with a ton of GCs who are either solo GCs at their companies or very small legal departments, and the operational demands of them are even higher than they've been in the past. And they're being asked to do those things because you know who cares about efficiency and the bottom line and data driven decisions? The business, who is literally your boss. That's your boss. And so if you don't get on board, if you don't understand how to talk their talk, you're going to be left behind very, very quickly.
I mean, I think I see that a lot of times when people make the shift from law firms to in-house, because it's such a mind shift change. And I think it's great that there are programs that you're starting to see in law school, because I think you're taught that there's this one mold of what being a lawyer is, and obviously you can be in different fields, and you're a tax lawyer, this type of lawyer, but in terms of what the model looks like of how your work's going to be, you kind of are like, yeah, I'm going to sit, I'm going to read, I'm going to type, and it's going to be very, you know through a specific format.
Yeah.
And even today, like, I think when I've hired like junior people, one of my biggest things is not that I just want to like offload work to them just so I won't have to do the easy work. I want to see what they're doing at the work. Like, of course you can mark up this NDA, today probably even more, you can use other tools to help you mark it up on your initial draft, which again, I think, we've talked about in the past. I think that's where my concern is for the future is like, how are people going to learn that judgment call
Yeah.
when they're not doing that core work? And part of that is really that you have to mentor people. And I
Yeah.
wish that had started kind of sooner. One, definitely legal ops, you're not having that many mentors. We're seeing more people in the field, but it's still like not really part of lawyers and law. Like
Nope.
it's there, like that's a different guy. That's like a technical guy. It's like, but you have to be the technical guy. Like
Yeah.
you also have to be a technical guy.
Yeah. I mean, so if you were to go back and reconstruct law school to produce the lawyers of today and tomorrow. Actually, you know what? Let's erase the today because it's already too late. Like this is going
Yeah,
to be
they're already.
so if you were to go back and reconstruct law school to produce the lawyers of tomorrow, what are the top 3 to 4 things that you would want the law school to have its students focus on to make sure that that was going to be a reality when they graduated?
I mean, process is obviously a big word, but I think it's understanding like things beyond the law and how the law interacts with other things. So whether it's business, whether it's personalities and people, like you're usually taught the law in a very theoretical, detached, like not like, and then there's a person that's like it's not, they're not telling you about that. And like if I'm just answering the legal question, that's easy. I need skills of how to manage other criteria that are not pure legal in my considerations, because I think those are things that you had to learn, like how am I making these judgment calls. And I think I mean, where the world is going, I think if you don't know how to utilize tech, I mean, I also think it's gonna be going into law firms, and it's going to be evolving. And if you're looking at tomorrow, you want to be a person that's enabled to do these things. If I had someone that just came out of law school and was like, I know how to use XYZ CLM and blah blah blah, I'd be like, great, I need somebody like that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of more invaluable than it's like, I, know how to write a brief. It's like, I need someone
I
that like,
I memorized my contracts textbook
yeah,
from
like they can recite back to me that
start to
it's like,
finish.
I need you to be running with me, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like agility, right? Flexibility, and not thinking that your legal profession is this one aspect about you.
Yeah.
Like be flexible.
Yeah.
And I think if I also knew that my legal skills could be used to not just be a lawyer, a lawyer proper, I think that would also help. I think law school doesn't tell you like you can go to a law firm or utilize your very like great analytical skills and other skills that can be translated for a lot of other things if we kind of help gear it to that direction a little bit more.
Yeah. Um, so you would make sure that the students understood how the law and lawyers are connected to other parts of businesses and other things. Anything else? What else?
I mean, yeah, I mean, that people are going to have to know how to use AI today.
Yeah. Oh, we'll
Like,
we'll get to that. There's literally no way to have a conversation in 2020. Oh, we're in 2026 now, by the way, without talking about that. We're gonna so yes, absolutely an understanding around AI, what it is, how to use it, how to prompt, things of that nature. I would just kind of I would put that under the umbrella of legal technology, although maybe it deserves its own category.
because I think it in itself can teach you things, right?
Yeah,
And I think part of that is knowing like how am I leveraging this tool as a lawyer in anything I do, right? Or as I mean, you can use it to leverage me being better operationally in my own home, like whatever it is that you want to do. But knowing how to leverage this thing that's kind of invaluable, that like I don't know how people are going to do their jobs without being able to be more efficient because they have this as in
yeah,
an aid.
yeah. Do you
Um,
think that's a realistic thing that will happen with law schools over time, given that we are, in 2026, law school, generally speaking, is still taught the way it was taught 100 plus years ago. For anyone who has seen The Paper Chase, which is a fantastic movie, that's
Movie.
literally like that was my law school experience, except we didn't dress as formally. Like that was really the only change. But it's the exact same thing. But I take no issue whatsoever with the Socratic method. I think it's fantastic. I use it with my kids all the time. I annoy the living shit out of them, but I think it's a great way to teach. But I'm talking more about the substance of the education. Do you see that changing? Is that realistic for you?
I think I think it has to be. I mean, I think you're seeing other programs like not law evolving and how they're operating. You're seeing a lot more people not in the legal field, but in other fields being like, I don't know that I need to go get a full degree. Like today I can get certifications for whatever it is and I'm getting a skill. So I think you're going to have to compete with what are value, skills, etc. are you giving me to go out into the hiring world to
Yeah.
get employed? Because at the end of the day, I think what the bottom line is that you care that you're like employed and have like a sustainable income for yourself. And if you're saying I'm going to have to make all this investment in law school, not sure that I'm getting skills that are necessarily needed for me to get this whatever this job in high tech where I can do other things with other knowledge. And I think the prestige of the name of like I am an attorney at law or whatever it is, most of us are not in suits and like doing that
Yeah.
kind of, I don't know, cool work. And so you're going to have to give me a better reason to go, a better value offer
Yeah.
um, to do
This
that.
is this is a really fascinating topic, which is going to take us away just like for a minute from
Definitely.
like the legal profession, but I think it's such a cool thing. Um, you currently live in Israel.
Yeah.
I'm in the United States. I was born in India. I grew up under the British educational system. I came to the United States because my father wanted to do his master's, and the best schools for what he wanted to do and the future that he wanted for his family was here in the United States. So I grew up for the most part of my life with this belief that was indoctrinated into me that if I go to the top school for college and I get a really good degree and I get a master's or whatever it is after that, the more degrees that I get at the more impressive places, that sets me up for success. Now, historically, United States, like that's the way the educational system was built. Was this you attach a level of prestige to the education because these people are really bright and they know a lot of stuff. And so that system was fantastic for the United States because it helped proliferate through the Great Depression and the economy and all of those kinds of things. I mean, inventions were coming out left and right out of the United States. There was a lot that was there, and I'm not putting all of it on education. While all of this is, and I'm not a historical buff, but while all of this is happening, you look at Europe and you look at other parts of the world, this concept and this segment of the economy, which was around trade and learning a trade and building a business and a life, was far more advanced and valued way more than it ever was here in the United States. Okay. But now look at what you just said. Now look at what you just said. Hey, maybe I don't need to spend, and I will even go because I talk about this with my kids. Maybe I won't spend 4 years. I spent 5 years in college, spend a bunch of money, and come out with this degree. I didn't know how to do anything when I came out of college. I maybe knew a little bit more when I came out of law school. I didn't, you said it, I didn't know how to do anything. So why not learn how to do some stuff and then build a business and a life around it? What is that? That's trade. You can call it trade school and like that has a derogatory connotation in this country still. And I'm like, why? And I just wonder if our technological advancements completely change all of that. And I think it's such a fascinating thing. I do think it applies to the legal profession and the legal industry, maybe not the profession, but maybe legal industry. And that's where I think AI plays such a huge role because I think it is the ultimate equalizer. I'm about to go fix my water heater because of ChatGPT. I'm going to tell you right now. Before this, like we're having issues with hot water, and like Google just wasn't helpful. And I went to ChatGPT, and I'm pretty sure I know how to fix it now because and like it's the ultimate equalizer. I don't have to call somebody and pay them $250 just to inspect my water heater. I should probably be able to do it myself.
Eh,
Thoughts on that?
by the way, also people are gonna be like, I don't wanna call a lawyer for $500 an hour plus, right?
Okay, but I'm not gonna advocate for that because you can get in real trouble. So we should say
No,
always
no,
still
no,
pay the
of course, but I'm saying, again, you need to show people what your value is. You are
Yeah.
gonna start needing to prove your value in whatever, because if
Yes.
I can turn to something, and just as any person, right? Like, just when people are, like, going to a doctor and like, "I looked it up and I have this," and the doctor's like, "That's not true." I don't want people turning that way, but you need to show, like, "No, I'm more valuable because I'm not gonna waste your time, because you're right, I am an expert, and it shouldn't take me very long."
Yeah.
And I think that, like, again, AI is going to be pushing people more to efficiency. Like, it's going to be less about like billables and more about like output, deliverables, etc. And I think we weren't used to that. As you said, I think it's a huge equalizer. I think if education, whether it's because it's expensive and whatever, not everyone can go this way. It doesn't mean not everyone can't build valuable skills to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Do do you see it as an inevitability that it will happen, or do you see it as something that really needs to happen, and if it doesn't, there's a bigger consequence on the other side?
I wanna believe it's an inevitability, but it probably is just me being like, "I think this is what needs to happen," right? Like, I think it's what needs to happen because it just doesn't make sense. We're demanding more efficiencies from, like, everyone and everything else, and I definitely think you're seeing it in other professions already being impacted, and I think people's fear of, like, there not gonna be any lawyers is false. There are gonna be lawyers that are doing more strategic work.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't take away someone that can, again, think creatively. It can have it can be, a partner in brainstorming this
Yep.
smart person who can think creatively, because
Yeah.
AI is as good as, the person using it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
It's not
until
kind of
Skynet, until Skynet gets born, and then yeah, we're all toast.
and then
But yeah,
that's it.
I completely agree with that. I think it's a great way to articulate it. I actually saw this kind of play out in real time very recently with one of our new customers, and we're working to get them set up in the platform and get their workflows running and so forth. And our implementation team ran into a situation where our recommendation to the customer was that they actually change their sales ops process slightly. Okay. Now that can be like, if I'm in the sales ops and like the company's doing really well, I'm like, I'm not going to have a vendor come in and tell me that I should change something. Are you crazy? But we were very confident that it would improve what they were doing. So I escalated it to my level at the customer and we were talking. And the conversation very quickly turned into, our CEO has actually mandated automation across the company. Why does this team want to do it in a manual fashion still? And it was I won't call it revolutionary, but you're starting to your point, the inevitability is not necessarily organic. But when I was at Axiom, we used to say this a lot. The only way true change was going to take place in the legal profession to move us in this direction was if the buyers of legal services and technology said, this is what you will do. That goes to law firms, it goes to vendors and so forth. And obviously, with legal technology providers and in-house departments, you're much more aligned in the outcomes. And so there's much more of a dialogue. Whereas, and I promise this is not an episode to shit on law schools or lawyers or law firms, but there are misaligned incentives between law firms and the in-house side. So any change that may come from there is going to be a mandate that will come from the buy side of the equation. So when I think about the inevitability, my brain kind of defaults to that just given the world that I played in for the last dozen years or so.
And I think it goes also back to your Office Space reference. It's like, so what do you do?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes. Yes.
And and that's it. Like, we're gonna have to start answering, like, "What do I do, and how do I do?" And it's
Yeah.
like, it doesn't make sense anymore.
It
That
touches the very identity of so many lawyers. That one's going to be a little rough, I think.
and I think
Um,
you're but again, a big advocate that we have more value than that, and, like, allow yourself to give yourself space to not be doing that work, and you'll see that there's a lot more significant,
Yeah.
work that you can be doing.
And
Uh,
and that is what I see. I'm an optimist by nature. I'm a glasses half full kind of person. And AI it's brought a lot of FUD into our profession. I mean, it's brought a lot of FUD globally in every profession, but particularly in ours. And for me, because I've been in this operational role for so long, I see legal work in really two buckets. A bunch of like manual repetitive tasks, and then hopefully you get some time for what you really went to law school to do, which is your core strategic thinking, analysis, and work. And the ratio there in most places is probably, I don't know, 20 to 80, right? When it really should be the other way around. And AI can solve that. So AI can literally give the lawyers what they have been looking for, whether they knew it or not,
yeah.
but really were not able to get. And that's the way that I see it, which is why you're not going to remove all the fear. I get it. And there will be, if you want to call it loss of jobs, fine. But I actually think it's a loss of tasks or an automation of tasks that's coming down at a very high volume, which allows the lawyers to be like, whoa, I've now got time to sit with my product manager. I'm a product counsel. I get to sit with my product manager 3 times more this week because I don't have to do this other manual shit. And that gives me so much more insight into their brains and what we really need to do to get this product launched and iterate on it. I just think it's so powerful.
I think also then you become a different part of the conversation. Like if normally your part of the conversation comes, we'll say at the end of the line, people are wanting to come to you to get your advice, not just on legal things, on business, because you have a strategic analysis, da 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 da, and you see the whole picture. And I think, you know, I feel my best when I'm working at a company and people are coming to me for non legal questions,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and they're like, how do you think I should do this? And it's like,
Business
it's not
partner.
related to me,
There you
right?
go.
It's not
Yeah.
related to legal. But if they trust you and they trust your judgment,
Yep.
for me, that's the win, right? Like, because I think that's the value of a lawyer, our judgment, our
Absolutely.
ability to make, usually, not everyone, not all the time, but like hopefully analyze things and make good judgment calls, considering our audience and purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the what I really like about it, like, is
Yeah.
knowing that I can really make an impact and be a partner,
Yeah.
beyond being the lawyer.
Yeah.
Uh,
I would go so far as to call that the holy grail of lawyering. I mean, I really would. Whether you are outside counsel or in-house counsel, because if you are in that trusted advisor role to the business and they're coming to you before they even think about doing anything, like, hey, let's get this thought partner in here because she really knows how to think about the legal issues that are at stake and then apply them in our business context and tell us what we should be doing. Not here's the risk, but like what should we be doing and why. I just think that that's where lawyers have their biggest satisfaction in
exactly.
the reason that they went to law school. I think it changes the game. All right, I have a few AI questions I want to throw your way. So
Let's
let's
do
take
it.
these one at a time. All right. We certainly talked a little bit about manual task reduction and things like that. If you do that, and it was when you do that, if when you do that, what happens to the junior lawyers who tend to get their training doing those kinds of things? Is there anything that we need to keep an eye out to ensure that those junior lawyers get the right kind of training?
So I am worried. I am a little bit worried because I think and we're looking at how the model is working today, right? But how the model is working today is that as a junior lawyer, you learn from these administrative, repetitive tasks. And the first time you don't know, and the next time you know a little bit more. And that's how we've taught them. And I think a part of the reason we've taught them that way is because usually the lawyers above them also don't have time to teach them because they have their other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that with us freeing up the administrative burden through AI, that it'll also give the opportunity where we have more space to, if we're going back to kind of the trade, you know, analogy that we did is that someone's teaching them the trade, and passing down that knowledge. Because I think part of putting things in AI and putting things in system, it's forcing you to solidify your knowledge base. It's forcing you to have this knowledge base not just be in your head and be living in a system and working.
Yeah.
And I think that enables you to also be able to teach that thought, right? Because it's not just, it's something that you've already been able to verbalize. You had to verbalize it just to create the system.
Yeah.
So my hope is that, like, you're going to be able to have people that have more space and time and to share their knowledge, because I think that passing down of the torch is invaluable. Definitely the things I learned the most. Of course, I learned from reading the many, many documents, but it's it's sitting in the rooms
Yeah.
with some very impressive people and being like, wow, that was really cool. Like, I liked how she did that. And maybe after the meeting, I'm like, hey, how did you know to ask that question? Or how did you know to do this thing? And I think, like, really, we need to create more space that you're having those mentorships.
Yeah.
And that really helps people grow exponentially.
Where do you see the biggest gap between how AI is generally marketed out there for legal teams versus any insights you have or personal experience you have on how AI performs in practice in legal departments or elsewhere?
I think there's a lot of fear for legal in using it because of the nature of our profession, that we feel like, I don't know, like, if it gets it wrong, then, it's against all of the law and we're all going to jail. But, like, it's like, well, one, you can, like, review it before you send it out. And I think a lot of times people feel overwhelmed just by that. And so they're not using it in a way that's really being leveraged.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, if I'm going to look over it anyway, then I might as well just look over it by myself the first time.
Mm.
And I think, like, well, no, and that goes back to understanding what your work is, right? And if I'm like, okay, I'm looking at some contract, audience and purpose, I know what it's for, I know who it's for, I know kind of like what the risk level, because it's only being used for whatever. So when I'm talking to AI, I'm being like, give me these following things, that this is really what I'd be concerned about if it's in the agreement, and, like, whatever it is. So I'm leveraging it to really do what I kind of already know how to do, and I'm really just instructing it better. And I think it's very important that you know what your work is in order to actually leverage it. And I think that's where we're seeing kind of a gap, that, like, they don't necessarily know how to instruct it to do what they're doing, because they're not necessarily clear what they're doing, other than knowing to look at it themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
You see
one
these
step above.
you do see these crazy adoption numbers that are out there in all these surveys. And without getting at least one or two levels deeper around, like, what does adoption actually mean? Does that mean like one person on the team used Chat GPT for research questions? Like, I don't know what that would be. I just don't. I don't get the sense that it's much deeper than that outside of a few departments.
A 100% agree. I mean, I think, even when you're looking at, like, contract management tools, which will say, I don't know if to say that they're more straightforward, but, like, they're already telling you a little bit what the system is, and you have to operate within that system. It's not like AI, which is kind of more, we'll say, free for all. You do have to narrow it down. I think even then, like, we're seeing, a lot more customers in that field, a lot more sales in legal tech. But then the question again goes back to the adoption. And I'm seeing that that's the hardest thing to do, like, getting these tools actually, let's say you got through all the hurdles of getting your team to buy into it. That gap between, let's actually make this efficient for our company,
Yeah,
and who's the owner of this thing, and who's, ensuring this adoption. And I think adoption for any tool, I mean, is what's the difference. Like, it's not about purchasing it, and as you said, oh, this one guy on the team, like, uses it. That's obviously too expensive for one guy to use it. It kind of defeats the point. And I think
yeah,
you first need to go low tech with yourself, of just knowing, like, what am I doing to be able to go high tech in either way, whether it's AI or whether it's a legal tech tool, to actually make it useful and of value for you and not another task on your
Yep.
list of tasks. And I think that's what you're saying for a lot of people. Like, now I have to learn AI. I already
Yeah.
have I have
Yeah.
another thing I need to do. Like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. All right. I have 3 questions left that I ask every single guest. Okay. And they're really kind of a look back and one in the present and then kind of a look forward. Okay. So I think I know the answer to this one already given some of our conversation, but if you were to give your law school self one piece of advice looking back today with the benefit of hindsight, what would it be?
Stay curious. Um, and don't think that you need to go down one specific path.
Wow, I
Like,
love
don't
that
be
one.
afraid to try new things.
Yeah. Love that one. Okay. Looking 10 years ahead, okay, for yourself, what kind of path do you hope you've taken, not just in title, but also in the work that you've been doing? By the way, if 10 years is too far ahead, because I know like things are moving at a like lightning
Correct.
pace
10
now,
years, we're
maybe
like,
maybe you can choose to do it the 5-year phase. That's fine.
um, I think it's kind of what we talked about. It's getting to that holy grail feeling more often of being someone that's enabling. I think that's very exciting to me, like to go in somewhere and really feel like I've made an impact and can make teams be more successful just by, cleaning up house a little bit. And I
Yeah.
think like getting to be doing more strategic work is kind of where I'd want to be.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. When you look back at your early career decisions, what signals or instincts turned out to be worth trusting and which ones were just noise?
I mean, I think it's hard because, you know, you go down your path because that's kind of what you have to do. I think I always had a feeling like what's not aligning for me, and I think I kept trying out different things, and I think it wasn't any place. It's like what I wanted to make of the place that I was working at. And I think understanding that difference, because I'm like, maybe I don't like being a lawyer. Is that what I like? What's bothering me?
Yeah.
Or what are other people enjoying? Like, what am I
Yeah.
missing?
Yeah.
Something is missing, and I like want to figure out how to fill it. And I think it took me a long time to figure out what's missing. And there are a lot of things that I do like about being a lawyer, and I think it gives me really great skills. And I think learning how to translate that to other things is really what helped me find a lot more satisfaction. That's like, you don't have to just be reading contracts. So I'm like, other people like this, like, I don't, you guys like reading contracts and I'm just missing out, and I don't know that they do, but like, I think I found the niche part of the things that I like within the system. And I think that's what anyone should look for, is that what do you like in this whole
Yeah. And
thing.
just, I
And
mean,
if
look,
not,
just having, first of all, I love that answer. It's a great one to wrap up on too, because it encapsulates a lot of our conversation around like how do lawyers, why do they go to law school in the first place? What do they find there? What kind of enjoyment? Who are they? Do they even know what's possible? I certainly did not. Not even close. And now I'm not practicing law and like it's the most fun I've ever had in my career. Right? The second half of my current 25 years has been fantastic because of that. So I really like that answer. It's a good one. I like that one. All
thank you.
right. My guest today has been Gal Bruck. Thanks so much for joining me, and hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me.